This is a long time waiting, the signing of a historic peace agreement between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda.
That's the U.S. president just ahead of the weekend, hailing a peace deal between Rwanda and Congo, longtime neighbors in a complex conflict. Analysts say Rwanda sent 7,000 troops to support M23 rebels, a claim Rwanda denies. Now, the rebels have seized eastern Congo's two biggest cities earlier in the year. The United Nations says thousands have been killed and hundreds of thousands have fled. While some welcome the ceasefire, others doubt its effectiveness, citing armed groups in both nations. A former Congolese president called it nothing more than a trade agreement. Part of the reason for that statement is that Congo is rich in critical minerals. For more analysis on all of this, we have invited to the show Liam Carr. He is the Africa team lead for Critical Threats Project at the American Enterprise Institute, and he's joining us today from Washington. Liam, thanks so much for making time for us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Liam, let's talk about this historic peace deal that's been brokered by the United States and by Qatar. Let's break down what's actually in the deal and maybe even what's left out of the deal.
The deal itself, from what we've been able to tell so far, is a little vague. Jury's still out on some aspects of it. The critical parts are respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity, some deals between Rwanda and the DRC to possibly work together against armed groups in the eastern DRC, and as well as some outlines for ways to move forward and make sure that these armed groups do not return to arms and are instead disarmed and reintegrated into the Congolese system.
And is this a matter of the two governments of these two states honoring this, or is there some form of U.S. involvement or Qatari involvement in making sure this takes place?
The actual verification mechanism has not been totally settled on yet. So there's still ways to go. When you mentioned stuff that has been left out, ways to verify this and make sure that both countries are upholding their side of the deal. That's certainly one thing that still needs to be addressed.
Well, the reason why that's raising so many alarms for people, Liam, is that there are still dozens of armed rebel groups operating in both countries, not least of which M23, which by all reporting accounts has been backed by the state of Rwanda, even though Rwanda denies it. And there have been brutal massacres. A rape has been used as an act of war in this conflict. And even the United Nations is looking into other forms of violence, possibly being war crimes. So are any of the perpetrators of these acts going to be held to account?
I think justice is another really key point, like you mentioned, to making sure that there is lasting peace in the DRC and the broader region. This conflict has been going on for 30 years. This is just the latest iteration of it. And I do think that's another thing that has kind of been kicked down the road for now. The U.S. and Qatar certainly lay things out that will be addressed going forward that are absent from the current deals, and justice and an inter-Congolese dialogue are some of those things.
Now, one of the key features of the peace deal as it's been brokered is that the United States is now going to have increased access to Congo's vast supply of critical minerals. Give us a bit more information on that.
Of course. So again, the economic aspects of this are a little bit unclear because it sounds like the economic deal might still be on hold because Qatar is still trying to negotiate a deal between M23 and the DRC directly. But the U.S. is interested in critical minerals, like you mentioned, rare earths, cobalt, copper, lithium, and U.S. companies are already looking for ways to get into the DRC and begin to invest money there. And that's certainly something that President Trump, that the administration will be looking for more ways to incentivize that. And they view peace as a first major point to make sure that U.S. and other companies are incentivized to actually do business in the DRC.
Part of the analysis on this is that this is just another way for the United States to push back against China's dominance on the African continent. What's your observation on that front?
I definitely think that is a major driver. China is a huge player within the DRC, and the DRC really does is home to some very important elements for defense systems, smartphones, other things like that. So that certainly plays a role, but I think that it can cut both ways, where President Trump is very America first, and so the critical minerals piece will be there, but peace helps achieve that critical minerals goal. And President Trump has also touted how he believes he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. So I do think he views himself as a peacemaker, and that personally it is something that he would like to accomplish.
I've been listening to reporting coming out of Congo, or experts in Congo, and this is a country or a region that's been exploited for many, many centuries, going back to the Belgians, and most recently having to deal with the outcome of the Rwanda genocide as well, and many of the Rwandans seeking refuge in Congo. People feel like they haven't been consulted in the country when it comes to this deal. What are you hearing on that front?
There are certainly people across the political spectrum in the DRC, be it the former president, like you mentioned earlier, civil society, other members of opposition political groups. And I certainly think that is an aspect that will need to be addressed going forward. There has to be nationwide buy-in on this. Part of the reason that conflict has been so strife is in the past, these deals have been done amongst elites, and it spreads corruption, which makes it harder for investment and means that it doesn't benefit the Congolese people. So making sure that the entirety of Congolese society, especially local groups that will be most impacted by this, have a say in this process will be key to making sure that this is stable for a long time going forward.
Liam Carr, thank you so much for your time and for your insights.
Thank you for having me.